Before I start, I have a favor to ask you. So I mentioned to the dean of my division that I was doing this talk, and it's a real science thing, and they're like, oh, what's the name of the conference? I'd really like to get funding to go for travel expenses. And they're like, no, it's a real science track. NASA sends people. And he said, really? And I'm like, I'm doing one of these talks, and it's in one of the big rooms. It's like Sulfur X, it's a big deal. And he's like, really? Take a picture? I'm like, oh, sure, I get my husband to take a picture from the back of the room. He's like, no, I want a picture from the front of the room. And so, I want to get a photo. On the count of 3, please say Dean. 1, 2, 3. Dean. Thank you. He will now cover my travel expenses. Yay, Psycho. So, title-wise, we're leaning into the lore of the science track, which is teeth. So I used AI actually to come up with 4 different titles, and this one was a thought of throwaway, but Ray loved it, so here we are. I teach science writing, I teach research methods and statistics and things, and these are things that students don't like to do. They have to do a whole lot of research. You know what it's like writing a literature review. It's a pain in the ass. So using AI is tempting because students don't want to have to do the work, and so we think, oh, well, we'll just use AI to detect, right, that it's AI. You know, there are all these apps out there, but the apps don't work very well. Washington Post tested like 5 written papers and had to, turn it in, detected 1 of the 5 as having been written by AI, and they were definitely human written. In another test, they took 20 AI ones and 30 human ones on ChatGPT 0, and 7 of the 20 AI paragraphs got flagged as human written, and 3 of the 30 human paragraphs got tagged as AI. So this sucks because we can't police our way out of this. 1 in 3 chance of giving credit to a student who didn't earn it is not good, and a 1 in 10 chance of accusing an innocent student of plagiarism is not good. So we've got to do something else with this, and we can't just bury our head in the sands because there's too much information out there. It's too easy to get this fake, easy, cheap information and just, use it to do your work instead of doing the actual work. Well, what I decided was, rather than being a Luddite and burying my head in the sand, I would try to, if you can't beat them, join them. But the key thing about teaching students to use AI is to teach them the limitations of AI. And so what am I talking about with the limitations? Teaching them that AI is not an encyclopedia, that it's not a computer, it's not a calculator. It's basically autocorrect on steroids. So here's an example of an autocorrect, and it's like, at what point does CPR become necrophilia? And that was an autofill capture from Google. I want to know what the searches were like from that person, because I tested this out to see if it would fill things in like that for me. It did not fill that stuff in with me. So regardless of whether it's right or wrong, it will very earnestly and confidently provide an answer. The Atlantic asked ChatGPT, as a psychologist, to produce the DSM criteria for an imaginary disease called inherited truculence, and it replied dutifully with 5 different criteria for this imaginary thing based on the words in it. Inherited is a genetic family history, and truculence is being aggressive. It's plausible-ish, but we don't expect plausible-ish guesses from a computer. We expect real answers. So clearly, if I'm going to teach my students to use AI to help them, I gotta first also warn them that the AI is not accurate. So AI content definitely needs to be fact-checked if we're going to incorporate it, but, and it's a big but, how do you teach AI? How do you teach students to use AI for something they don't know about if they need to know enough about that topic to know when AI is full of shit? And you can't do that if they don't know anything about it. And ironically, it's the students that don't know anything about it that are using it to get out of doing the work, so they don't know that AI is bullshitting them. So the key thing here is, you gotta introduce AI. If it's gonna be introduced into the process, introduce it in the middle of the flow of like writing a paper, but after they know something about a topic. So first, I taught them how to search the library, what's the difference between a peer-reviewed journal and a non-peer-reviewed journal. I taught them to find their sources. I taught them to write an outline of those sources. So they had read those articles, they had selected the best ones, they had written them into an outline. They knew the major players, they knew who the authors were in the field, and they knew something about it. And then I said, before you write your first draft, ask AI to write your first draft. And then go through that first draft and color code it. Green means it's accurate. The source really exists, and the information in the source really says what the AI says it does. Yellow is accurate but irrelevant information, and red is this source doesn't exist or this fact is straight up wrong. And then I asked my students to do that. Students from 2 different classes. One is the lower level classes, like my intro psych students who have very little practice doing critical thinking or anything like that. And so this is aggregate papers from AI where they went through. Green is accurate information, yellow is, irrelevant, and red is inaccurate. Notice how theirs are mostly green? They were like pleasantly surprised at the accuracy of AI. But my more advanced students who had explicitly been trained in recognizing a good source and fact-checking, their papers looked a lot more red. So the key thing is if we're going to allow students to work AI into their pipelines, allow it to use, there's some green stuff in there, and often that was stuff that was like, yeah, this source was accurate, I didn't catch that source, that's a good source, I should probably put that into my paper. Good, use that. AI gave you an idea, go read the actual journal article yourself and make sure it says what it says and work it into your paper. But it also, the deal with the color coding is you can look at these instantly and see whether the AI was right or wrong on a global scale. It's fact-checking it in color lets you back up and go, holy crap, there is a lot of red there. And the students that came in with their papers said, after I had them do this assignment, said, holy crap, that's a lot of red. You cannot trust anything AI spits out. It spits out so much wrong stuff. I'm not gonna trust that anymore. And in fact, the different classes, when you looked at the future trust, the better they were at catching the red, the better they were at fact-checking, the more they caught it, the less likely they were to trust it in the future. And so my response to that was, good, go out, tell your friends. And that's what they did. So yay for that. We use it, we can use it, but it's a tool, it's not an escape to do your work for you. All right, along that same line, I decided that I would ask AI various questions about DragonCon, and we would fact check it. So remember, green is accurate and true, yellow is true but irrelevant at this point, and red is inaccurate. All right, so I asked it very key questions, and now that you all know something about DragonCon, you are capable of rating the accuracy of these things. What are the personality characteristics of the typical DragonCon attendee? A high degree of openness to experience, imagination, creativity. It got a surprising amount right. By the way, when I was talking to somebody about this on the way here, saying, I was shocked actually at how much green there was in their DragonCon answers. And someone said, that's because the AI fed Reddit into it. And Reddit knows everything about DragonCon. And I was like, okay, you're not wrong about that. They fed it Reddit. So it's right about all that. It's got, the thing here, they are at least moderate levels of extroversion. Okay, granted, I'm biased in the science track. I see all the other people in the science track who are like, hey, and that's great seeing you, and they get into the bathroom and they're going, with the introvert decompression. But the rest of it, pretty good. Thrive in high energy social contexts, panels and cosplays and all that stuff, that's great. They identify as nerds or geeks, yeah, all pretty much accurate. So I'm like, okay, it did pretty well there. Can you explain the cult of John? Okay, so I'll let you look at that for a second. I need to put on glasses because I've reached that age where I can't see all of this. By the way, I joined a Cult of John Facebook group to get this information so that I had permission to use that image. Somebody is making candy frogs, like the frogs from Harry Potter. They're making those frog cards, and they made one of for the Cult of John. So A performative in-joke, subcultural ritual, accurate. It got it wrong. It originated as an impromptu phenomenon surrounding the DragonCon staff member. It was not. It was that FedEx cutout. And it was a cult that evolved into a pseudo-religion? No. I've seen, we were here Wednesday night, there was the whole blessing and the convocation, and they were giving out communion, and mock serious iconography. There's nothing mock about that. I saw the bishop with the carpet and the eyes, the googly eyes. Co-founder, this is true, co-founder Mike Piazza said, and I highlight this in green, the one thing about DragonCon members is they will take a joke and beat it to a death until it becomes funny again. Solid green. Okay, my husband being one of the T-Rex cult, what is the average temperature reached inside an inflatable T-Rex costume during the stampede? All right, I love that it starts out with the, while no peer-reviewed study has documented the exact temperature of a T-Rex inflatable costume, you know, while comical on the outside, true, very comical, typically made from non-breathable materials, it doesn't breathe well, it's in Atlanta where it's 90 degrees with high humidity. Anecdotally, people say it's like a mobile sweat lodge. Having my husband had done that, I swear he loses a pound of sweat every time he does that thing. They estimate between 110 and 120, peaking during activities such as running and dancing. So I would imagine at the end of the stampede, as it was tonight, when it reaches the Hilton and they're all boogieing down there, 120 degrees solid, and they're all steamy like the inside of the Titanic back window. How much sleep does a typical con-goer get at DragonCon? I figured I'd start asking it some health questions. I'm a pharmacologist and a biopsychologist. So sleep is almost a running joke? No. You can sleep when you're dead, accurate. Hydrate, sleep, shower, pick 2. Accurate, very, very accurate. It's because the con runs 24 hours a day. You know that we all just sacrifice sleep in the interest of squeezing in just one more little event or something like that. But it did say the average attendee usually manages somewhere between 4 and 6 hours of rest. No. And it said the trade-off of running on only a few hours of sleep is an increased chance of catching con crud. And I'm like, oh, con crud, we all know about con crud. What alcoholic drink would be most likely to kill con crud? So it actually replied, ha, I love where your head's at. Unfortunately, no booze will actually kill con crud once it's in you. Yellow, irrelevant, we're all gonna drink it anyway. In reality, the best ways to avoid it are wash your hands, stay hydrated, eat real food, no snacks and booze are not real food. Inaccurate. You can do both at once right here in the Hilton. Right downstairs, there's alcoholic ice cream. Have you tried that? I had one last night where they soak Oreos in salted caramel whiskey and then layer ice cream on top of it. It is insane. It's over by the Crystal Ballroom. Yeah, you're welcome. And then it said sleep, you should be able to maintain at least 5 or 6 hours of sleep per night to keep your immune system healthy. Yeah, so finally, okay, being a good scientist, all scientific papers should wrap up with some sort of closing, like future scientists may want to consider doing this research or that research. So I asked, okay, wrapping this talk up, what future directions for research, given the questions I've asked you above, should this scientist engage in next? And this is what it suggested. Is it true that DragonCon badge line bends space-time? And if so, should we be funding that instead of the Large Hadron Collider? If time, I love this one. If time is relative, how come every panel you really want to attend overlaps with 3 other things in a photo shoot? Given the density of cosplay per square meter in the Marriott, could it be classified as a non-Newtonian field under pressure? And would a Wookiee, a Warhammer Marine, and a wizard walk into a bar? How many BTUs of body heat do they release? And is that why the elevators smell like destiny? You guys have no idea how hard it was to narrow this down to just these. I was laughing so hard I had to use my inhaler reading it. So that is it. Welcome to your fact checking of DragonCon.
Oh my God.
Oh, don't go anywhere. You've got questions. Does anyone have questions? Floor. Yes. Yes. No. I see no hands. There's one. There we go.
Oh no, he's asking questions. I'm scared.
What does destiny smell like?
I don't know. But the thing is, whatever Reddit filled in to, teach it about DragonCon, it thinks an elevator full of smelly costume people smells like Destiny, whatever that is. It sounds like a new cologne made by Axe body spray or something. Yes. They need Destiny at the Claremont is what they said.
Question. Was your dean aware of the contents of your talk before agreeing to pay for travel?
He knew I'd recently published this paper, and he knew I was presenting it, but he did not know I would be presenting it to a bunch of drunken science nerds. They can't tell that from the photo. Serious question, can you put the full list up on the Discord? Yes. Oh my gosh, yes, I can. Because you will, seriously, it's so good.
So, you're hitting close to home here. About 3 weeks ago, I decided I was going to build an ARG for DragonCon. And I decided to use ChatGPT's newest model to do this. And I had to make sure it was familiar with DragonCon first. So I asked a lot of these same questions. And I came to the same conclusion. I was like, what do you know about DragonCon? It thought for, I think it was like 2 minutes, 50 seconds. And going through it, it referred to Reddit a lot.
Yeah.
And specifically, it was feeding back a lot of my own posts.
So you're now part of that class action lawsuit, right?
All on the same page, and that was the good part, but I was like, man, this would be real easy to influence.
Oh, yes.
I think there's one way up here at the front, and I'll take that as the last question, I think. All the way at the front.
Go faster.
If you had to choose a voice to deliver your results from ChatGPT, what would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm thinking maybe Pepe from the Muppets. These are my answers again.
One more time.
Amazing. All right, are you ready for the final alt titles of the